This is part 2 of David Chandler Smoking Gun Debunked.
As the top 30-floor section falls, it tips to the east. It starts off intact, but then it disintegrates in midair. Gravity alone could not cause the top section to disintegrate. When an object is in free fall, there are no internal stresses. It should have hit the ground in one piece.
Mr. Chandler makes a few critical assumptions: that the top disintegrated without impacting anything, that it fell in free fall, and that when it disappears into the dust and smoke, it has disintegrated. Note the collapse initiates on the eastern face, the direction to which the building tilted. Let's look at it again, making the following observations. Less than 4 seconds in, the upper block is severely tilted toward the side that failed first. It is highly asymmetrical. Already the perimeter columns are completely out of alignment. The weight of the upper block is no longer carried by the columns as designed. 6 seconds into the collapse, the intact hat truss top section of the upper block comes into view. The upper block does not appear disintegrated, but soon disappears into the smoke and dust. This falsifies Mr. Chandler's first claim that the upper block disintegrates without impacting anything. Clearly, it is impacting the structure below. Now, let's examine Mr. Chandler's second claim regarding freefall. The red line represents roughly the 90th floor. The uppermost corner appears to intersect the red line at about 6 seconds and 21 frames. That's 20 floors, or 240 feet. Freefall would have only taken about 3.86 seconds, even allowing for a 25% margin of error, allowing 5 or 6 seconds. This was clearly not in freefall. Mr. Chandler's second claim is falsified by direct measurement. Mr. Chandler's assertion that gravity alone could not have caused the upper block to disintegrate would be correct in a hypothetical case, but clearly that is not what happened, so both his observations and his conclusions are irrelevant. Mr. Chandler's first two claims are falsified. Now let's look further at disintegration. Mr. Chandler argues that this material is the disintegrated upper block, not material from the structure below. But he is inferring this, as you cannot see anything through the debris. As we've seen, the upper block was tilted as it fell. This created lateral forces on the lower impacted section. The lateral strength of the lower perimeter columns came from the floor truss connections to the core columns. The descending upper block destroyed the floor trusses and with it the lateral stability of the columns. Unable to resist these forces, the perimeter walls were forced outwards. Note the downward vector of the upper block. Note the lateral vector of this broken column section. This graphic shows you how the column sections were welded together, and you can see how they correspond with the broken section in the video. Finally, here's the answer to Mr. Chandler's strange contention of nanothermite rockets. I'm not joking, that's what he's proposing. Notice how some of the debris changes direction rather abruptly. Let's take a look at this debris from other angles at better resolution. The straight short objects seen tumbling in the turbulent clouds appear to be lengths of aluminum cladding which was attached to the perimeter steel columns. Here it is at full speed. Watch the tumbling objects change directions. In these cases, they begin by rising, then falling. Note the object to the right changes direction very abruptly. Notice how these objects are affected by both turbulence and gravity. Also, because such objects are tumbling, the effects of air resistance are variable and chaotic. The two objects I tracked have no dust trails, showing that this behavior is not dependent on that characteristic. Here is one with a dust trail. It is this white material trailing from the objects which Mr. Chandler claims is nanothermite smoke. Now we've identified objects with and without dust trails behaving in similar ways. What have we learned? 1. The chaotic trajectories of these objects are not dependent on whether or not they have a dust trail. 2. The color of the dust trails exactly matches the color of the dust clouds anyway. There is no evidence the trails are of a different composition. Nor has Mr. Chandler been able to present evidence to show otherwise. Let's review his clip again. Why is Mr. Chandler making such a fundamental error in judgment? He has failed to demonstrate the dust trail is nanothermite smoke. He has failed to account for turbulence in the behavior of the objects. Such a sloppy and superficial approach is bound to produce inaccurate results. But do truthers even care whether their ideas are accurate or not? It would appear not. The main goal of truthers seems to be to attempt to impose a theory of controlled demolition on the events, whether or not the theory fits the facts. There is no need to hypothesize about nanothermite rockets when a simpler, more logical explanation fits the events perfectly. Mr. Chandler falls victim to the same mistakes as many other truthers do, that is, failing to scientifically rule out common explanations and instead favor exotic, conspiracy theory-inspired ideas. This is not a sound scientific approach, but instead allows one's confirmation bias to overrule better judgment.